Thanks for being with us here on Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. Some new information to tell you about in the case of Ghislaine Maxwell. Federal prosecutors are offering to completely withdraw separate perjury counts that are separate and apart from the sex trafficking crimes that she's been convicted of, if she agrees not to move forward with the push for a new trial. So let's back up. Maxwell convicted of 5 of the 6 counts in the sex trafficking case that was brought against her in just recent weeks, and it concluded. There's been a recent court filing from these federal prosecutors saying that in the event the defendant's post-trial motions are denied, that means a motion for a new trial, the government is prepared to dismiss the severed perjury counts at the time of sentencing in light of the victim's significant interests in bringing closure to this matter and avoiding the trauma of testifying again. Now, we know the defense team wants to delay setting a sentencing date because they believe they have a compelling basis to have Maxwell afforded a brand new trial. That was because there was information that a juror who sat on the case let it out during deliberations and then out to the media afterward that he had been a victim of a sexual assault. And whatever the circumstances were, that somehow was not explored in the voir dire process, and it should have been. Let's take a look back now together at just how the facts in the case were presented in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. It's an indictment more than 2 decades in the making.
Maxwell was among Epstein's closest associates and helped him exploit girls who were as young as 14 years old.
Ghislaine Maxwell, longtime girlfriend of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, arrested and charged for her alleged role in the recruitment and sexual abuse of young girls.
Maxwell and Epstein had a method. Typically, they would befriend these young girls by asking them questions about their lives, pretending to be taking an interest in them. They would take them to the movies and treat them to shopping trips. Maxwell would encourage these young girls to accept offers from Epstein to pay for their travel and their education, making these young victims feel indebted to Jeffrey Epstein.
Investigators say Maxwell played a critical role in what has long been believed to be a sex trafficking operation spanning decades and crossing continents.
After developing a rapport with the victims, Maxwell then tried to normalize sexual abuse with a minor victim through a process known as grooming. For example, Maxwell would discuss sexual topics with the victim and undress in front of the victim, or be present for sex acts involving the minor victims and Epstein. Maxwell's presence as an adult woman helped put the victims at ease.
The 18-page indictment claims that between 1994 and 1997, Maxwell knowingly facilitated Epstein's access to victims, knowing his preference for underage girls.
Maxwell and Epstein worked together to entice these minor victims to travel to Epstein's residences, his residence in New York City on the Upper East Side, as well as Palm Beach, Florida, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. Some of the acts of abuse also took place in Maxwell's residence in London, England.
Investigators have also charged Maxwell with perjury for allegedly lying during a 2016 deposition.
Maxwell lied because the truth, as alleged, was almost unspeakable. Maxwell enticed minor girls, got them to trust her, then delivered them into the trap that she and Epstein had set for them. She pretended to be a woman they could trust.
Maxwell's indictment comes almost a year after Epstein's own indictment on federal charges of sex trafficking minors in Florida and New York. Epstein was found dead in his jail cell a month later, the medical examiner ruling his death a suicide.
As an Epstein survivor, this day represents a new beginning. This is the beginning of justice, which we survivors have been seeking for decades.
That was Maria Farmer, who claims both she and her sister were abused by Epstein and Maxwell in the early 90s. While Maria's allegations were never prosecuted, investigators are hoping Maxwell's indictment will help heal old wounds.
There never was, nor shall there be, an excuse for the criminal behavior you were subjected to. We know that your quest for justice has been met with great disappointment and that reliving these events is traumatic. The example set by the women involved in this investigation has been a powerful one. They persevered against the rich and the connected, and they did so without a badge, a gun, or a subpoena, and they stood together.
The arrests in this case may not end with Ghislaine Maxwell.
The target is not just this woman. The target is the entire organization that allowed this kind of perpetual, systematic, and habitual abuse to exist out in the open for so long. I will not be surprised at all if there are additional arrests, additional people brought in, both unknown and possibly very famous. This is a black book filled with a lot of big names, and people are running scared.
All right, so to set the scene again, Ghislaine Maxwell went to trial with the 2 perjury counts brought against her being severed. So you can do that with criminal cases. Offenses can be severed. Those perjury charges stemmed from the 2016 deposition Ghislaine Maxwell gave in the case where Virginia Giuffre sued her. We know that she's accused Jeffrey Epstein and other very powerful people. She's the one who is currently suing Prince Andrew. She has sued Alan Dershowitz, and he has countersued and adamantly denies the allegation, says that Virginia Giuffre has perjured herself. But if the jury would have heard those offenses, it really would have tainted the sex trafficking case being brought against her. So they're rightfully severed. They're still on the table. And now these prosecutors are saying, here's a deal. We'll take away those perjury charges if you don't pursue any post-conviction relief, because she wants a new trial since that person on the jury got on this jury having been a victim of sex assault, and arguably that was unfair to her right to a fair trial that is constitutionally protected. So what might her attorneys be advising her to do with this deal on the table? Let me bring in managing partner at the Cochran Law Firm in California, Brian Dunn, to weigh in. Brian, what do you say, please?
Don't touch that deal with a 10-foot pole. The prosecution is showing vulnerability by even offering that deal. Let me tell you this, Julie. If you're ever in the situation, the unfortunate situation where your guy gets a life sentence or a sentence that's tantamount to life, 80 years or something, the first thing that you're thinking is, okay, how can we undo this? Now, judges in high-profile cases, especially like this one, they're not going to make any mistakes. They're doing everything by the book because they're worried about the appeal, same as counsel. However, if you could find juror misconduct, that is the holy grail of new trial motions, because it's very effective at getting immediate relief. And if it's a situation where you have a juror not being forthcoming about something as sensitive as his personal experiences as a victim in a sexual assault situation, with the fact that that is exactly what this case is about, I think if I'm the defendant, I'm going to be looking at my hand as if I have pocket aces or ace king. That's what I'm going to be looking at.
Exactly. So well said, Brian. And I know you agree. I agree. For anybody watching this discussion, know that, you know, in no way are we defending Ghislaine Maxwell. What she did, it's appalling. It's reprehensible. Those children deserve to be protected. It's so sad that this justice finally came for her. And now, to your point, which is excellent, Brian, the juror misconduct potentially that might cause this whole thing to be overturned and back to square one, right? If you're the defense team, you're going to want to.
It will still be another trial, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and I'm sorry, sorry to cut you off, Julia.
No, please.
But the listeners should understand, even if this falls apart, they're still going to prosecute this woman. It's going to be very difficult on the victims who testified to have to testify again. But the case against Ghislaine Maxwell is so strong, and it cries out for justice because what she did was so morally reprehensible with regard to these vulnerable girls, luring them into this situation. If this goes south, if the new trial motion is granted, the prosecution still has a very strong case and a very bad defendant. And that does not at all mean the end of justice. It just means we're going to have to do a little bit more work.
Well, I hope that all of our wonderful viewers who are so invested in this case really keep in mind what you just shared. if the worst case scenario happens and it's a new trial, so be it. Like you said, they're more than prepared to go forward. Brian Dunn, so great to have your insight on that. Thank you kindly. And I want to pick your brain